TTC operators are injured in a swarming attack involving a group of youths.
Our members are frustrated. Everybody's upset about this, and it's not an isolated incident.
Toronto police say they are investigating after 10 to 15 youths assaulted the workers on a bus in Scarborough. This latest violence just days after another TTC operator was shot with a BB gun. Plus,
so we really need the whole real estate industry working together to weed out these fraudsters.
it's a real estate scheme more common than previously thought. Dozens of homes in the GTA mortgage or sold without the homeowner's knowledge. Behind the sophisticated frauds with ties to organized crime. And
get yourself an AirTag, put it in the luggage, not on the outside of the luggage.
Air Canada lost their luggage, but a Toronto couple was able to track and find their bag themselves right before the airline was about to donate it to charity. Good evening, I'm Kelda Yoon. Toronto police are investigating yet another incident of violence against TTC workers. 2 TTC operators were injured this afternoon in what police say was a swarming attack by a group of youths on a bus in Scarborough. This after a TTC worker was shot with a BB gun over the weekend. Del Manukduk has more.
Around 3:30 Monday afternoon, Toronto police responded to reports of an assault near Kennedy Road and Marion Road. It says 2 on-duty TTC operators were injured after being swarmed by 10 to 15 teenagers.
Thankfully, they didn't require hospitalization. They were treated on the scene. But we also had a third employee who was the driver of that bus who was traumatized by this.
Police have not released any description of the suspects, but say they fled the scene. The alleged assault happened just 2 days after another driver was shot with a BB gun.
It hit me right here.
Alexandra Steckel is the driver who was shot. She says she was looking down at her phone when she was hit multiple times while waiting to take over a bus route.
I felt something just start hitting me in the chest, and it kind of felt like raindrops or pebbles. Before, I fully looked up and saw what was happening, I was just hit right in the forehead.
Steckel says she turned away and was struck a few more times before seeing a young person yell obscenities towards her and the TTC. Mayor John Tory condemned the BB gun shooting. He also issued a statement tonight saying we have to put an end to these acts of violence and disrespect against transit workers. Meanwhile, the union representing TTC workers is calling on the TTC, the city, and the province to put in more resources to better protect staff and riders.
Well, there's a number of acts of abuse, violence, spitting, punching, slapping, abuse, verbal abuse. The scale of the way things are happening right now, I don't want to have a tragedy occur where we have a loss of life.
Steckel says the head of the TTC has agreed to sit down with her and listen to her recommendations.
We should be able to wear our own personal jackets so that they can't identify us as TTC while we're standing there. Another big one is changing relief points from on the street to only at stations. And obviously the main one, then I think the public agrees with this one, is more security.
The city has committed a portion of its upcoming budget to add 25 more special constables to the system. Dale Manukduk, CBC News, Toronto.
Toronto police are looking for help finding several suspects wanted in connection with a number of violent armed robberies. Greg Ross has those details.
This security video, taken from a condo building in Liberty Village, shows 2 masked men that police say are responsible for a violent home invasion where one person was shot 3 times. According to police, 28-year-old Boaz Frimpong of Toronto is one of those 2 men. They say on November 30th, Frimpong and an unidentified accomplice entered the underground parking garage of the building and approached one of the residents.
The victim was handcuffed and had a ski mask placed on their head. The suspects then escorted the victim up to their condominium unit, where another tenant was present, and they too were also placed in handcuffs.
Police say the 2 suspects then ransacked the condo, stuffing valuable items into duffel bags that they brought with them.
A short time later, a third victim and a person that was known to the 2 original victims attended the unit and confronted the suspects. Unfortunately, that victim was shot 3 times by the suspects.
That person was rushed to hospital, undergoing emergency life-saving surgery. Police say that person suffered life-altering injuries. Frimpong is wanted on a number of charges, including forcible confinement, robbery with a firearm, and attempted murder. Police also released video of this robbery at a business on Kennedy Road in Scarborough.
3 suspects wearing masks entered the salon where approximately 15 people were located within, including employees and customers.
Police say one of the suspects had a gun and ordered everyone to get down on the ground.
The suspects removed a quantity of money from the cash register and also stole a purse belonging to one of the employees.
Police have since identified 22-year-old Ibrahim Mohammed of Durham Region as one of the suspects. He's wanted on several charges, including robbery with a firearm.
Police also provided details about a carjacking investigation that has already led to the arrest of 3 suspects. They're still looking for a 4th suspect in that investigation, and he is believed to be armed and dangerous.
Police say 23-year-old Ryan Tyson of Toronto was allegedly involved in 2 carjackings at knife point. Suspects stole 2 Ferraris, including one that police say was valued at about $1 million. In addition to the charges that Tyson is facing for those robberies, he's also facing a charge of attempted murder against a police officer.
He's also sought in relation to an incident that took place in October last year, where he evaded a police investigation and struck an officer assigned to the Gun and Gang Task Force with the vehicle that he was operating.
Anyone with information on any of these suspects is asked to contact police. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
It's a nightmare scenario for homeowners, having your home mortgaged without your knowledge or even sold from under you. As CBC has been reporting on such cases, and it appears it's more common than you think. Farah Morali now with new details about a sophisticated real estate scam that has ties to organized crime.
That's a red flag right away.
Okay. In this file folder, photocopies of countless fake IDs, allegedly used to commit real estate fraud. Private investigator Brian King has been hired by a title insurance company to find those responsible.
Right now we have 30 active files, at least 30.
And that's just here in the GTA?
Yeah.
Many of King's cases involve individuals using fake ID to impersonate a legitimate homeowner. They then place a new or second mortgage on the home and take off with the proceeds. He also has cases where people use fake ID to rent homes. Once they get the keys, others impersonate the real homeowners and sell the property. Again, taking off with the money.
Typically, it's organized crime that's behind it. The people that actually are front-facing on the frauds, the people using the IDs, posing as the homeowners, are not the ultimate people that are receiving the funds. They're usually paid stand-ins.
Of King's 30-plus cases, 4 involve a home sold without the owner's knowledge. But there are more than that.
There are 3 other title insurance companies in Canada, in addition to the one King works for. They step in when these types of frauds happen to cover costs and get the home back to the true owner. These companies tell CBC News they too have seen cases of stolen homes, and not just here in Toronto.
They're largely happening in the Greater Toronto area and the Greater Vancouver area.
Experts say the number of cases started picking up in late 2019 and estimate title insurance companies have lost around $200 million in title and mortgage fraud cases since then.
We went from 0 of those claims to now many dozens of those claims. It's not sustainable over the long term, so we really need the whole real estate industry working together to weed out these fraudsters.
We're seeing a level of sophistication in that area that we've never seen before. It's very organized.
Given the volume of cases, some are wondering why there's been so little attention.
We were told over and over and over again that we were the only people. This was such a rare situation.
Melissa Walsh's 95-year-old great-uncle nearly lost his home in Toronto's East End after fraudsters used fake IDs to rent his home, then impersonated him to list it for sale.
Hearing that this has happened to potentially over 30 other families is hard to wrap your head around. And again, I don't understand why this hasn't been discussed.
Meanwhile, behind the scenes, with the recent rise in cases, investigators like King have their work cut out for them.
It's a very painstaking process to try and understand who's behind it.
Quietly tracking down those responsible for a sophisticated scam that's growing. Farah Morali, CBC News, Toronto.
A busy downtown Toronto intersection will be shut down for at least 2 weeks while crews repair a broken water main. King Street West is closed between York and Simcoe Streets, and University Avenue is closed between Adelaide and Wellington. Chris Glover has the details.
Heavy machinery noise at King and University is up, and for many, so is the commute time.
It's crazy because nobody told me, and now I need to look where can I take the bus to go to my work, and oh, I'm late, and I don't know what to do now. it's a mess.
The mess started Saturday when a 140-year-old cast iron water main burst. It flooded and closed St. Andrew's subway station for hours over the weekend. While the subway is now operating normally, for the duration of the work, the intersection will be closed to vehicles, including King streetcars, now forced to detour. Here's what happened. There are 2 water mains underground at that part of King Street. After turning off the valves around University Avenue, they found a 45-centimeter hole on the north pipe. The gushing water pushed out some soil, leaving a void around 60 centimeters deep in an area of 6 meters by 6 meters. The city says it has to replace 25 meters of the broken pipe. All that at one of the most active street corners in the city, above and below ground, and you've got your 2-week timeline.
There's a steam conduit just close by that actually may have also sustained a bit of damage from the water. So yeah, it's always very challenging to get around all the other utilities and try and get in and out as quickly as possible.
The city says crews will work 24/7 to get the job done. Overall, Toronto Water spends $1 billion a year in capital improvements, hundreds of millions for water main repair and replace alone. 10 years ago, Toronto averaged about 1,700 water main breaks a year. Now that number is down around 700. Around 15 to 20% of the city's water mains are more than 100 years old. The vast majority of that aging infrastructure is right here in the downtown, and the city, of course, notes that that is the most complicated place to have these kinds of fixes and also the biggest impacts on traffic and travel. Chris Glover, CBC News, Toronto.
Colette Kennedy joins us now with a first check on your forecast. And Colette, a few flurries tonight, but nothing major. The bigger system is coming later in the week.
Yeah, it's really towards midweek where we have the system we'll focus more attention on. So we got that little bit of snow through yesterday. That's kind of system 1, system 2 overnight tonight. And that gives us a bit of a dusting through the GTA as we head into early tomorrow morning with some flurries still probably lingering. And then it's storm 3. And that's the one that's going to come in and have an impact for the second part of the day on Wednesday and then into early Thursday morning. So Wednesday's commute, when we could have really poor driving conditions, snow that's coming down at a pretty rapid rate and allowing it to accumulate. And so that's what I'm going to go into more detail in a little bit later in the show. I do want to just show you this clipper system, though, going through tonight. And a couple of areas could pick up 4 or 5 centimeters. That's north of the city with some of the lake enhancement. Towards the city, like I say, just kind of a dusting. And maybe a sunny break could come our way as we get into tomorrow afternoon. I wouldn't expect much, but the possibility is there. Now we're into Wednesday. In the morning hours, it begins to move in light at first into southwestern Ontario. Then some light snow or flurries begin to push in towards midday into the GTA, but that thickens up and gets more organized later in the afternoon into the evening, and that's kind of when that corridor of when I expect we'll get most of the accumulation coming through. As to how much we're talking about, still a few days away, and there's some variables. I'll talk more about it, though, and give you an idea coming up. -2 your low tonight, 2 degrees, still mild tomorrow afternoon.
Thanks so much, Colette. Back when airports were at their most disorganized last year, some people just accepted they would never get their bags back. But not one Toronto couple. They were able to track and find their luggage even after being told by Air Canada it was lost. Ali Chiasson has their story, including their advice for fellow travelers.
All right, here we go, TikTok. I'm updating you on my luggage being lost for the last 4 months.
Let's take a trip. Nikita Reese and her husband Tom fly from their honeymoon in Greece and land in Montreal. They recheck their bags for their connecting flight to Toronto, but Tom's bag doesn't make it. Not to worry, they have an air tag inside the luggage, and they can see that it's at a baggage facility near the Montreal airport.
We were like, oh, awesome, maybe it's getting processed.
Reese is contacted by Air Canada, but it's not the call she's expecting.
Your luggage is deemed lost. Will be receiving an e-transfer in the amount of $2,200.
She accepts the money and can still see the bag pinging from the facility in Montreal. After 31 days, they get an alert and see that Tom's luggage is on the move to Etobicoke near Pearson Airport.
My husband messaged me and he got really excited. He's like, it's moving, it's on the move. It's in Toronto, it's on like the highway.
To their surprise, it's not taken to the airport, but to a public storage locker. Nikita's husband pays a visit.
She started snooping because there was about, I think he said 3/4 of an inch between the door that you could see through. So he took his flashlight until he found floor to wall, like literally luggage to the door.
Turns out the locker is owned by a third-party company that Air Canada sends lost and unclaimed luggage to, which eventually gets donated to charity. In a statement to CBC News, Air Canada confirms, quote, bags whose ownership cannot be determined can be disposed of after 90 days, which we do through a third-party company, which does make donations to charity.
But your bag was ready to be donated after just 31 days.
31. So if that's in their policy, they breached their policy.
Air Canada? Quote, yes, this particular bag was transferred prematurely, in error, and we have followed this up internally. The airline arranged for her bag to be dropped off today. Nikita isn't sure this would have happened without taking to TikTok and eventually the news. But if there's one takeaway,
if you are traveling, get an AirTag.
As for Nikita and Tom, they're hoping at least some of the contents are intact.
There's 2 bottles of red wine in there calling my name.
Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
Commuters now have a new option to pay for transit. As of today, transit users in Durham, York, Burlington, and Hamilton can tap their credit card to pay their fare on GO buses or trains. Credit cards on smartphones or a smartwatch will work too. Welcome back. Rural leaders from across the province are meeting in Toronto. The theme of their conference is breaking new ground, with one issue getting a lot of attention, the Ford government's controversial plan to open up the Greenbelt. But as Lorenda Redicott reports, not everyone wants to tackle the issue.
It's the place to be this week for provincial politicians. The Premier was the first one up at the Rural Ontario Municipal Association conference with a message on building more housing.
You just can't keep saying, not in my backyard. My neighbor doesn't want it. We don't want it. Where are we going to put these people? We have to build housing, and we have to be bold about it.
Protect local democracy.
Hours later, dozens of people protested how Ford and his government plan to achieve their goal, reducing development fees, allowing building on wetlands and farmland, and overriding municipal plans.
Eventually, something hits your heart and you have to say, no, this is wrong.
This Dufferin County politician is against opening up the Greenbelt for development, but says many others at the conference aren't willing to publicly say that.
They'll take the sticker, but they will not stand up and take a stand.
I asked some of the attendees what they think about the Greenbelt issue.
No comment.
No comment. Nope. No comment from me either.
I think we're good, thanks.
Though some tell me building affordable housing is a big issue in their communities.
Also here today are members of all 3 opposition parties. They've already been speaking out against this at Queen's Park.
We're going to fight every step of the way, and let me also assure you, I believe we can get these guys to reverse course.
And it's going to be people power that's going to kick Doug Ford off the Greenbelt.
Late in the day, the housing minister spoke, defending the cut to development fees in order to build more homes.
I want to be frank with you. Runaway fees add a substantial amount to the cost of new homes.
And promising to work together with these municipal leaders. Certainly no sense the government has any plans to back down from its vision. Lorenda Redicott, CBC News, Toronto.
All right, let's go back to Colette now with a look at your extended forecast. And Colette, late Wednesday is when we can expect to see the stronger storm system come through.
Yeah, this is the one that's going to pack more of a punch as it comes our way, so to speak. And although we might get some light precipitation a little bit earlier towards midday, I expect it to intensify as we get into Wednesday later afternoon and into the evening as well. So there is a special weather statement I showed you earlier in the show. Just kind of a heads up, it's not till Wednesday. It gives you some time to get things prepared, make sure you're ready for it, or to make changes to travel plans that you might have because the conditions are going to be poor. But that high hourly snowfall rate, that's what can sometimes pose a problem because it's harder for plows or even somebody trying to just shovel to keep up with it when we get a lot in a short period of time. The track is going to be so important with this, especially with the mild winter that we have had, because if we see this move just a little further north, it means that temperature gets a little bit above freezing, and for the city it becomes more of a mix, and that really drops those accumulation numbers. Right now though, it looks like it's going to track so that we stay in the cold sector just enough for that snow to come on down. This is the first system going through tonight. That just gives, in most cases, a bit of a dusting, and then we start to ramp up for this coming in on Wednesday, earlier in the day for southwestern Ontario, and then continuing to spread. So the morning commute in the GTA, for example, should be okay. The afternoon commute, I wouldn't expect that it is okay, because we're also looking at some strong winds really blowing the snow around, and that also impacts things and reduces visibility there. So a guideline, there is the chance of seeing 10 to 20 centimeters, and probably more like up to 30 centimeters there in the eastern Ontario. I don't want you to get too married to these numbers, just giving you a guideline. We've got up to around 10 centimeters back towards Windsor, but that potentially could be that more in that 5 to 10. So I'll be able to tweak this much more as we get into tomorrow, because then it'll only be 24 hours out, and I'll be able to give you a better idea. Feeling like minus 10 tonight into not only southwestern Ontario, but that wind chill tonight around the Golden Horseshoe, also feeling like minus 10. Enjoy tomorrow. Still mild with a high of 2 degrees, and then we start to see that colder air pushing in with that system midweek.
Thanks so much, Colette. Hydro One has launched a major downtown tunneling project. A 150,000-pound tunnel boring machine called the Celtic Tiger will be chewing up the earth underneath the city for the next year. We got an up-close look at the massive machine.
Today we'll be lowering the tunnel boring machine into the shaft behind me, where it will begin its year-long journey as we construct a tunnel underneath the city. So as the tunnel boring machine is going through the tunnel, it's turning and chewing up everything in front of it. At the same time, it's extracting that material to the back end, where it's extracted out to the surface and safely trucked away for reuse at a nearby facility. It's designed to bore through hard rock, sand, and soil. The tunnel will run 85 feet below ground, and here from Esplanade Transmission Station, up Sherbourne, along Dundas, to Bay and Dundas at our Tirali substation. Once completed, this tunnel will house new transmission circuits that are replacing those originally installed in the 1950s and 1960s. The existing infrastructure has served us well, but it's 70 years old, and it's time to renew and invest.
And that is our show for you tonight. Thank you so much for watching. We'll leave you with a look at people out walking and enjoying the snowy scenery today. I'll see you back here tomorrow night at 11. Have a great night.